as the industry progresses, everybody kind of works together and shares the information and try this and try that, and this is how you can hone your skill to get better.
Welcome to the C21 Drive Time podcast. Thanks for liking and subscribing and joining us today. I'm Aaron Rollick. Joining us today, as usual, Chris Hassel, Ryan Topley, and our special guest back for part 2, Ross Muir, our C21 Drive Time photographer. And Ross, we're going to talk everything real estate photography today, and the fact that you're a licensed drone pilot, which sounds cool.
It does sound cool. Killer drones. It's the future.
I want to start with that. You have to be licensed to have a drone. So if I walk into Best Buy and I buy a drone, I have to get a license.
Well, there is one exception. If your drones are under 249 grams, you can then buy a micro drone, which in Canada you don't require the license. So any drone over 250 grams, you need the license with Transport Canada.
So basically a drone out of a Cracker Jack box that will never fly in Canada because it's windy.
Yeah, so when it gets breezy, the micro drones do battle a bit, but the technology's come so far where those little ones are getting really, really competitive. And just to try to keep up with technology, there's just much like the cell phones, there's a new drone, there are multiple new drones every year, but in each range, there's always a new one once a year, and they just keep on getting better and better and better as well.
It's probably the things as realtors we take for granted. We've already got that glossy look on our face like, okay, awesome. What's Ross talking about? We just show up and watch you fly it around and make places look pretty, and away we go. So real estate photography, guys, let's fire away and kind of drill into what Ross does for us.
Well, what got you into it, Ross? I mean, you and I have talked about this lots because I'm one of the few people who likes to go to the photo shoots, probably just because I like talking to Ross. And I know you photographed cars in the past in South Africa.
Yeah.
So what made the switch to real estate?
So cars has always been a passion of mine. Nobody would know that. But,
how many do you own? Really quick, how many do you own?
That's the problem, is I have to stop and think and count.
Okay, skip it over then. I thought you knew off the top of your head.
So I think in Canada I've got 7 at the moment, and I've got a couple back home still, so got a couple of them. So vehicles has always been a passion. I used to do motorsport photography, vehicle photography, and the brand I started was HAGG, H-A-G-G, which stands for hauling ass and guzzling gas.
I didn't know that. There we go. Yeah. I knew it was HAGG, but I always meant to ask you what it stood for.
Yeah, we see that on our booking system with you, but
so
the more you know.
The more you know.
So that's where HAGG started out. And in South Africa, I was an estate agent I started out becoming an estate agent, and I started taking photos for the agency. And it's a different type of photography. You have to think about the lighting. You've got dark rooms. You've got all different things. So you kind of carve out a specific skill in order to photograph property properly. So I started off shooting my own photos, and then I started taking photos for the rest of the agency. And then I started taking for more of the different agencies and in South Africa, and then I realized that I enjoyed that more than having to deal with the actual sales of the properties. And the South African structure is different. You've got a seller's agent and you've only got a seller's agent. So you don't have the buyer's side as well. So there's a lot of competition. You don't have agents working together. It's quite cutthroat where people are trying to poach properties. And so it wasn't really a pleasant kind of environment to be in as an agent. And I much preferred the photography side of things. So it just progressed more and more into doing that specifically. And the vehicles are still a passion and an interest, but generally people don't pay you to take photos of cars or stuff like that.
I remember when you came to us, I believe you landed in town. I think you reached out to a number of agencies or brokerages, we call them here, or real estate shops, and I can't remember if you dropped something off, or because I remember going onto your website and looking at some of your handiwork at to Hauling Ass and Guzzling Gas website, the Hag website, and looking at the photos and like, holy man, this guy's editing, his work is off the charts. Because of course the stuff that you were showcasing then was all South African properties.
Yeah.
So we looked at them and said, okay, that's much different than what we have here. But the skies were perfect and the lighting was perfect. And we're like, holy man, this guy really knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something you pride yourself in is that. Let you speak on that.
Yeah, it's a different type of photography, and the cool thing is the real estate photographers around the world share techniques and share. As the industry progresses, everybody kind of works together and shares the information and try this and try that, and this is how you can hone your skill to get better. And I really do enjoy learning the new techniques and the new skills and always trying to produce the best possible photos possible. And that's, over the years, the techniques have changed. So I've been doing this now for, about 6 years. So things have changed a lot. Technology has changed a lot. The techniques have changed. And it is something which is, I enjoy almost the art of it, to really capture it in its best possible light.
So to speak.
I really like that. One of the things that we have with you, Ross, is dealing consistency. The effort going into making, the low value or lower value home, for example. I mean, you're making a $1 million home, your same care and attention as a 100,000 or less home, no matter what it is. And I think that's great value for our clients, showing that the commitment is there to give the best showing of the house as it is. And then the other thing is showing it for what it truly is. I mean, there's no photoshopping, there's no fakery or trickery or those types of things. And it's a common thing I know for myself, acting primarily as a buyer's agent going in, where I notice big time houses that you've taken the photographs of, where people say, boy, this looks just like the photos. Where I think Ryan, Chris, you'll agree, there's lots of houses that we go to where they say, this looks nothing like the photos, and really some clients can't get past that. And I think that's an appreciation. And I always make a comment while our photographer makes a point of making sure it looks like what it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the adventures we get to take you on, because that's the cool part. I mean, let's take the day that Aaron took you out. I mean, you saw, in that one day, you saw a multi-million-dollar acreage. You saw 2 parcels of farmland. You saw recreational property that day. Yeah. I mean, you pretty much swung the whole gamut, and you were everywhere from, an hour and a half out of town to 15 minutes out of town.
We answered the most probably asked question in history about bears.
Yeah, that they do.
They do in the woods. We came across, we're going to use
excrement, is that what you're saying?
The technical term of scat.
Okay.
Ross was somewhat fascinated that we came across a bunch of piles of bear crap.
Okay.
As we toured
and the
through.
Question is, do they in the woods?
Yeah.
And they do.
Were you shocked by the volume of it, or the just the sheer presence?
It was quite spread out, which means that there was Yogi and Boo Boo most probably.
Yeah.
Moving at the time. There you go.
It also led to each of us keeping, being a not the most rural guys, I think is probably a safe bet for the both of us, Ross. Is we roamed that property with one eye open.
The city. What he's trying to say is the city boys went out in the country, Ryan.
That's
Ryan
right.
and I grew up rurally, and these boys are the urban side of things. So, they went out in the country, and they were.
I could answer your question without you having to go out there. The answer is yes, they do.
Yeah.
Where else would they go?
Just gear it down, Grizzly. So Ross, clients that are about to have their home listed for sale, what are some of the top things they can do to help you in getting prepared to take the photos? Now, it could be as simple as all the lights on, blinds open, but what do you like to see when you walk into a house that the homeowner has ready for you?
So there are a couple of things. A lot of the photos, a lot of the times I like to shoot the lights off, which is different, because lights on, you get color cast. So if someone's got orange light bulbs and that kind of thing, then everything white becomes orange inside the room.
We've had this conversation numerous times.
And so that can often skew your correct colors of what the property is and that kind of thing. If the house is dark, then you've got no choice and you have to shoot with the lights on. It is also, as soon as the lights are on, then you see all the different wattages, you see all the different colors, and like his vanity lights above his basin in the bathroom has got 5 different light bulbs in it, and that starts to detract from.
You've been in my house then.
So that's one thing. Clutter. Generally, the Century properties are very well prepared, and the guys are conditioned before I get there. Vehicles out the driveway is the usual thing. Blinds open. You want to let in as much natural light as possible. You want the property to be as light naturally as possible. So you want all the curtains open, all the blinds open, all of that kind of thing. And just keep less is usually more.
Amen. Yeah. Amen to that. Less is more.
Yeah. So
I think that's probably the biggest thing. The key word I take away from that is clutter, and then of course the comment "less is more." I think that's probably the number one thing is just decluttering as best you can to show the house. I mean, it's great to see interior design and decorating and all those types of things, but I think as consumers, we don't need to see all that. That stuff's not staying with the house. Getting countertops clean, that type of thing. So. But that's great advice for our clients. Is you don't have to turn all the lights on. You'll deal with that as you go through and go from there. And then of course hope that it's not a super windy day and we can get some drone shots of that house too.
Yeah, and then obviously the fly zones in the city with the airport and that kind of thing. There are certain areas we can't fly, and then there are certain areas where the drone's limited to only 60 meters height wise. So the drone, being in a city with an airport, there are areas where we can't fly it. In terms of the photography, there's different styles. When it comes to shooting houses or properties, you get, as a real estate photographer, we're selling the space, we're selling the house, we're selling the environment. Architectural photography, you focus on the smaller details of the actual building or the walls. And then interior designers, you catch the stuff inside the house. So the little details that the people have chosen to put in there. And as real estate, you're selling the property. So you want to portray it and show it that the potential buyers see an interest to come and see it, and we want to get them in the door. So we want to show enough, portray it enough that you guys get the phone calls and the guys come and see the houses.
Especially from a digital perspective, which our business is now more than ever. People buy with their eyes.
Yeah.
Before they're going to tune into what we have in the write-up or the detail or information, they'll go click the photos and have a look. Then if they're engaged, then they'll go look for more details.
Yeah.
If it doesn't get past the first screening test, which is those photos, which is of utmost importance, then they're on to the next.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, and you talk about buying with their eyes. It ties me into next question is, Ross, you can just talk about, we know what it is, but the eye guide, the virtual house tour, the virtual measuring tool, and your interaction and use with that, and how that's kind of changed your business, having, I guess, that extra hammer in the toolbox.
Yeah, so the iGuide's a really cool piece of Canadian tech, and what is great is that you've got the 3D virtual tours. The guys can walk around and they can look up, down, around, and they can get a walk-through view. But what really is great is that it's got a laser on it, so it's got accurate floor plan as well. And then that really does take the guesswork out. The buyer can see that it is a 2-bedroom house. They can see it is a 3-bedroom house. They can see is it 3 up or a 2 up property. So I think it's certainly going to take out a lot of the uncertainty. I do shoot without getting too technical, is I don't shoot too wide an angle to distort the pictures. So generally I try and make the photos as realistic as possible. So if the room does look like it does in the photos, so you don't want a tiny little bedroom to look like you could have an absolute party in there and park an aircraft.
Yeah. The dreaded fisheye lens.
Oh yes.
I think Ryan and Chris groan and moan. We went through a couple of years of the use of the fisheye lens, and that, as a buyer's agent, I heard that a lot. Was, what the blank are they doing? This is nothing like the photo. Yeah. I mean, if it's a small room, it's a small room, and I think the virtual tours tie that in now. When we upload, well, there's the floor plan.
Floor plan measurements, they can see that the room is however many square feet. So it does take out any of those gray areas.
If it's 8 by 10, it's 8 by 10.
Exactly.
And, especially with what we do now, people they'll come to town. We had some clients not too long ago that just came from out of province. They had no furniture, no anything. So they were making buying decisions on room size and stuff. So we want to make sure those are deadly accurate, which the iGuide definitely does for us. So they can say, hey, if the dining room is, pick a number, 10 by 12, well, they can go make a buying decision off that.
Yeah.
But before it was how accurate was the agent with their measuring tape? Did they just eyeball it? Did they slap it down? Like, what was it? And some of these clients spend thousands upon thousands of dollars. One client that Aaron and I had, they furnished the whole house brand new, top to bottom.
Yep.
Everything got bought locally, and so it's like, ooh, you don't see that very often, but it does happen.
Wow.
So,
But I think it's a nice tie-in too, because you get a lot of people that have, maybe they're going to buy some new things for their new home, but there's those sentimental things that come with them, whether it's a wall unit or the couch or a dining room table that was their grandmother's, and it's an important piece for people, is that emotional tie that they're bringing in, whatever that piece may be. And it's like, well, okay, my grandma's kitchen table is 8 feet by 4 feet. Well, I need to know if it fits. Well, okay, well, let's drop it into the iGuide, to the floor plan, and we're going to get a good sense of where it is before we even step in there. And for some people, okay, that dining room's not big enough, we're not even going to go see that. And I know that because it's on there. And I think we appreciate that. It's not wasting our clients' time, just walking in and walking out. And it's fair to everyone.
and what are the two biggest killers typically? King size beds, pool tables, room killers. And if you don't have the size for that, some people say, I'm just going to skip right over it. Well, the king size bed won't fit, we ain't buying it. Pool tables especially can be room killers and not as prevalent as they used to be, but
they tend to stay in the properties.
Lots of times they will, yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, that's true. So, Ross, you talk about the drone size, and I just want to circle back to that because we do deal with the airport here in town, and I think that's an important point of clarity for a lot of the spaces in town is we can't drone them all. We run into that in the industrial park on the north end of Lloydminster. I mean, we'd love to be able to drone all of the industrial buildings, and we simply can't because we're in the no-fly zone. And I think a lot of people wonder that, well, how can you do these properties and that? And is there a way that people or a consumer can look on their own? Is there just a website? There's got to be one out there, I'm sure.
Yeah, so generally the software behind the drones geolock you immediately. So if you can't fly, you can't fly. Won't even let you take it off. And that's been implemented by Transport Canada as well, and all of the different governing bodies around the world have teamed up with the manufacturers to make sure that drone use is safe and doesn't pose any threats to air traffic and that kind of thing. So there, I believe the DJI, if you do go onto the DJI website, you can see the different fly areas and that kind of thing. Lloyd, it's a different. The northwestern side of town, being where the airport is mainly affected, and then some sections along Highway 16 west of town is kind of where it reaches to. Some parts just south of Highway 16 we can't fly as well. Mm-hmm. And then it goes further east across Highway 17, and there's so to the southeastern side of Lloyd, there's I think it's the approach angle of the aircraft and that kind of thing.
So it's not a perfect circle; it's a bit oblong and
yeah, it's like an octagon shape almost.
Okay.
Where they've kind of drawn that border, and then some of the smaller towns like Macklin, you can't take off because there's an airport there, and you would never
There's
have
an airport
thought.
in Macklin?
Yeah.
Okay. I learned something new today.
Now you know. So
Yeah.
there you
The
go.
Macklin International.
Yeah. So there's some interesting places where you think you'll be good, but then when the time comes to taking off, you can't. Vermilion is another place.
yeah, airport right in town.
So Vermilion, a lot of Vermilion you can't fly as well. So there's all of those kind of areas that some places you can, some places you can't. And then when taking the photography, we do try and be aware of neighbors and privacy and that kind of thing. And when taking the aerial photos, we take them to show where the property is, kind of in relation to everything. So it's generally far enough away that you can get an idea of the neighborhood and everything, but without encroaching in anybody else's personal space.
Right, we're not zooming into any neighbors' backyards and those types of things. And I'm giggling to myself because on our adventure day out in the bush, I just kind of assumed, well, no issues. Drone goes up, drone comes down. Ross is operating the drone, taking some photos and buzzing around, and I can hear it. And then I'm watching Ross with a confused look on his face as to how he's going to land this drone in
the trees,
in a creek, right by a creek with the trees and everything else. So it's showing that there's nothing we won't do for our photographer. I'm down on my hands and knees, making my back as flat as possible so he can land the drone without destroying it or trying to grab it with his hand and catching his fingers in there. So yeah, we got her figured out, and I checked to make sure there's no bear crap before I got down there. So
Way to take one for the team there, man.
it was a team effort that day.
Yeah.
We had an adventuresome day up in Frenchman Butte area.
Normally, I'd say if you got too close to his head, you'd clip his hair, but that's not a problem.
Not a problem.
Follically with Mr. Rollick. So
No.
you're clear there. You're good.
No big deal.
Yeah. Well, cool. I mean, it's been an interesting, visit. You've been with us how long now? On and on.
Must be about 3 years.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. It's been quite a ride.
Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, from where we and what's the biggest difference between what you've seen to kind of wrap this up? Obviously, it's a lot different than back home. What's your favorite to shoot here? Is there one that stands out? I'd love to do. What's your favorite thing to shoot?
Interestingly, I enjoy shooting in winter. The exteriors with the snow and everything is very different to back home, but also they're very clean. So if somebody's garden isn't manicured or all that kind of thing, you get a really nice, crisp, clean exterior photos throughout winter. Winter does become interesting when the snow drifts in the backyard are crotch deep. And batteries don't enjoy the extreme cold. So something else, the drone, very limited. In the dead of winter, we can't drone, or they've got to be very, very quick shots because the batteries freeze. And I've lost one drone in a slough in the middle of winter already, so try not to do that too often.
Yeah, no doubt.
I would imagine. Well, it's exciting. So Ross from Hag Photography, our C21 Drive Time photographer, thanks for coming in today, and
Thanks a lot.
we appreciate your dedication to the craft. I know we're always fascinated with what you do and seeing how you do it for us and produce it for our clients, and it's much appreciated. So thanks everyone for tuning in to the C21 Drive Time podcast. Remember to hit the like, subscribe button, and join us next week for another exciting episode of the podcast.